Oh, Steve works at Abbott. Abbott bought a product called Visualace that I was an investor in. You know that product, Stevie? All right. Good afternoon, good day, depending where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Derek Distenfield, and I am the co-founder of an artificial intelligence venture studio called GSD Venture Studio. And we also have an accelerator called GSD Labs. And two of our portfolio companies are part of this event, and there's some additional companies that you're going to be learning from today as well. So just some quick housekeeping first. You are all muted right now. We do want your involvement. And so if you have questions throughout the event, please feel free and ask them in the chat. And we will have a question and answer period, and we will answer your questions either during this event. If not, we'll send around the answers via email with the recording of the event. What we are going to do is we are going to have a quick talk from the director of one of GSD portfolio companies, Dr. Raju, who is from a company called MayaMD. Will talk about AI and medicine for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then my co-founder, Gary Fowler, will lead a panel. So first I will introduce Dr. Raju. So let me Dr. Raju is the director at MayaMD, which is an AI-powered clinical intelligence platform that enhances physical patient communication and collaboration. The platform can process 1,400 symptoms, 7,000 clinical conditions, lab results, and medical history to replicate a physician's approach, which will democratize healthcare, reduce patient costs, and boost hospital margins. So I'm interested to hear from Dr. Raju what all that means and more. But the one thing I can tell you is I've been an entrepreneur since I was 7 years old and started my first company selling baseball cards on the side of the road. And I've met a lot of incredible entrepreneurs, and he is an incredible one. And he's got an incredible product, and he's got a lot of expertise to share. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Raju.
Yeah, want to share the screen? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good evening, everyone, and good morning to where you are. I'm Dr. Raju. I'm the director for MayaMD.ai. So today, to start with, we will be discussing a bit about the future of AI in healthcare. So as you know, currently the buzzword is AI, artificial intelligence in different fields. So you're seeing a lot of technology being used, including deep learning algorithms, machine learning algorithms, all coming up. And that's used predominantly, started with some other fields, but now we are seeing an influx of more technology coming up in healthcare. So the reason wherein I believe AI can play a huge role, being a physician myself, is that there's a lot of physician fatigue happening across the globe, especially in developing countries. And AI can help in mitigating that. And the cognition load on doctors is too much. At the same time, we are seeing AI can help the main three stakeholders in healthcare. One is patients, second is doctors, and other ecosystem partners, which includes all the lab investigations, insurance companies, etc. So we have a good bunch of people out here who have joined from the US and India, and all these companies are working in this field. For example, we have Cloudphysician, which is a company working in ICU, democratizing ICU care in rural India, who are based in Bangalore. We have MedPay, Ravi joining us. So he has a company which is looking at integrating insurance to the underprivileged sections of India. So having said that, while AI started and because of COVID, we are seeing a rapid influx of digital transformation happening in healthcare. Previously, doctors were reluctant to embrace AI and technology because doctors like patients, meeting patients in real life. So now we are seeing more adoption to EMR systems. We're seeing more adoption to EHR systems and HMI systems, etc. At the same time, we are also seeing image processing capabilities becoming better and better every day. It started with dermatology, but we are seeing a better algorithmic processing of pathological slides, radiology images, etc. So this has accentuated the digital transformation. So you can get most of these test results in a very short period of time. Now, previously, drug interaction was a huge thing because as a patient, you may be taking multiple drugs and drug interactions was creating a huge problem. So that's where AI came in first. You can get all the drug interactions, food interactions, etc. coming up. Now, as I mentioned, it simplifies life of patients, doctors, and admin people. What the projections are right now is AI will become a $150 billion industry by 2026. Now coming to some other, I'm just going to the next slide. So what I believe the future of AI would be, the first part I really like to mention is how to diagnose efficiently and reduce errors. In countries like US, there are around 10% diagnostic errors happening. So my physician colleagues from US can throw more light on it. Having said that, symptom analysis is the first step in diagnosis, right? So we as a platform, we try to do symptom analysis for 1,400 plus clinical conditions. And we can do process around 7,000 plus clinical conditions in less than 2 minutes. And we are seeing more symptom triaging tools coming up. We are also seeing early detection of cancer, which is possible with AI. As mentioned, pathology, radiology, these are some of the specialties which has immensely benefited with the AI. More algorithms coming in, we can produce those data into actionable insights, which can help patients as well as doctors to make right clinical decisions. So CDSS, Clinical Decision Support System, has benefited immensely from AI. Then comes drug development. So once you go to drug development process, typically a drug development process will take 5 to 10 years of time. There are 20 to 30 molecules which are being analyzed, and it used to cost around $2.5 billion to from the start of the drug development process to coming to the market. But currently we are using AI algorithms, AI-based systems in place, which are reducing this gap. We can get a drug in initial development reduced by around 4 years of time. And we are also seeing its impact on clinical trials, especially in clinical conditions, which includes immuno-oncology, neuroscience, rare diseases, and targeted therapy. So based on a genomic makeup, we can also target therapy based on your genomics and also personalized medicine. Then comes improving patient experience. So healthcare was one of those fields where the patient experience was lacking. So if you go to some of the other fields, they used to give a lot of importance to the client experience, but healthcare was slowly catching up. But now we have digital front door solutions, which can accentuate the patient experience. We have digital twin coming up. So the same technology which is used using IoT to create a digital clone of your entire, like a car or something. Now the same technology can be used for your body. So it can analyze a lot of parameters, your heart rate, your BP, etc., to create a twin, which can help in chronic diseases, digital therapeutics, etc. Then comes automation, because everywhere there are repetitive tasks, which takes away a lot of your time, and healthcare administrators face these challenges, especially in health insurance, where there's a screening, and a lot of patient queues, etc., can be minimized with automation. So what we are seeing is a lot of hospitals now using automation tools, even in discharge. We are seeing automation tools being used by nurses for initial record of medical information. We are seeing these tools used by administrative staff also. So that ways, most of hospitals in US now use some kind of automated tools. And I think that is coming hugely to the developing countries also. Now coming to medical data interpretation. So there's a lot of data being out there while we're creating data. Medical data is very private, it's also very sensitive. So we have seen data privacy laws becoming more stringent in many countries. We have HIPAA compliance and GDPR compliance, and every country is coming with their own local medical data privacy laws. The advantage here with AI is there can be patient registries for specific diseases. We can use this data for creating healthcare data libraries. We can also use this data for retrospective studies. So if you want to go back to the data and do a study, it becomes very easy. You can reduce the cost of studies and come with new intervention modules, new health economic studies, etc. So that way, this is quite an exciting field. And in the future, I'm believing more studies will come up in this field. This is my favorite, actually. Till now, what I've explained to you is more on medical specialties being embracing AI. Now comes the surgical part, because surgery, as you know, is complicated. You have very experienced surgeons. Now, what we have seen is we have AI-assisted robotic surgeries. So the advantage here is while doing a surgery, there's a lot of hand movements which are being tracked, and this is data being generated with the Da Vinci system and a lot of very well-known systems in place. All these AI robot-assisted surgeries have more precision. It improves the human way of doing a surgery, and sometimes it can go to a very, very small millimeter-like precision. And also, we have seen virtual reality-enabled robotics. So it actually improves the surgeon's field of vision. He gets a three-dimensional view of the patient subject where he's operating. And we are also seeing robotic endoscopies being done and analyzed. And another application that I felt which is happening is on medical education. So we have a tool called MayaEDU, which is used for training doctors in medicine, which is used in Yale School University of Medicine. At the same time, I'm also seeing that this virtual reality enabled medical education tools can act a lot of value for medical students across the globe and paramedical education also. Now coming to the last part of it is personalized healthcare. Again, I think in the next 10 years, this is going to be really big. And I think a lot of companies who act in this space will have add a lot of value. They'll become unicorns in the coming future. It can reduce costly integrations with different health systems, and it can be optimized for healthcare. As a closing remark, I want to end with this thought, and I think the panel can also add their thoughts on it. AI will not replace physicians, but physicians who do not use AI will be replaced in due course of time. Thanks for your patient listening, and I opened the forum for the panel.
Hey, Dr. Raju, before I introduce the panel, there was one question that came through, and it said, the question was, what is the success advantage of AI over direct human interactions between doctor and patients? Would AI be able to replace doctors over a period of time, or is it going to complement? I just wanted to ask that because it was directly to that quote. So do you have any other further comments to elaborate?
Yes, one of the systems which currently, for example, MayaMD, we have done studies to understand how precise our systems are. And we have a 94% accuracy in virtual triaging, which recently got published. It's peer reviewed in PubMed. But having said that, I think Vipin can also add here, AI, we don't believe AI will replace humans, but at the same time, we get a lot of leverage to act and add value. We can reduce the errors. And a lot of times doctors can be free, and they can focus on things, and they can contribute to research, etc. Currently in India, most of the doctors are seeing more and more patients every day. They don't get time for researching. They don't get time to data analyze, etc. But this will help them in note-taking, intelligent note-taking. We are also seeing AI-based voice systems in place. In surgery also, I don't know exactly how much is the precision, but it's improving every day. And with every technology coming in place, initially there may be more error rates, but going ahead, the error rates will start decreasing. So yeah, I'm quite excited about AI in healthcare.
I think I agree with you. I certainly don't know if I would go to medical school to be a radiologist, but I think I agree that doctors will not be replaced anytime soon. But without further ado, let me introduce the panel very quickly. The moderator really needs no introduction. He's my partner, co-founder, CEO, and president at GSD Venture Studios. He has 30 years of operational marketing, sales, executive leadership experience, including a $1.35 billion exit successful NASDAQ IPO. He's founded 17 companies, including Eva.ai, which was named one of the top 10 AI HR tech companies. Gary Fowler was also named one of the top 10 most influential AI executives to watch in 2020. He writes for Forbes and has published over 100 articles on AI and technology over the last year. The next person is Dhruv. He is the head of engineering and CISO at Cloudphysician. Cloudphysician is a smart ICU solution, democratizing quality healthcare to small and medium-sized hospitals. With its smart ICU solution, Cloudphysician is able to increase the number of ICU beds that an intensivist can reach in a timely, cost-efficient manner. Cloudphysician team can leverage their doctors, medical experts across a large number of beds, thereby providing efficient solutions, no doubt important with the COVID-19. The next person is Ravi Chandra, the co-founder and CEO of MedPay. Ravi is experienced in building healthcare startups in the past, working closely with various stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystems for more than a decade. Ravi understands the need of OPD insurance in India. Launched in April 2020, MedPay has seen rapid growth in the insurance tech space. The company has gone on to raise seed funds by funding by Entrepreneur First and GrowX, and has disrupted the healthcare OPD segment by building India's largest connected care network. And Aparna Pujar is the CEO and founder of Zemplee. Zemplee is redefining how elderly care are cared for, strategically placed AI smart sensors, improve the quality of life and track daily living activities, helping caregivers remotely verify well-being. Zemplee's AI interprets elderly's dining habits, medication intake, activity level, sleep patterns, and other important details, ensuring they live life to the fullest. And who did I miss, Dr. Raju?
You messaged Dhruv, Vipindas.
Oh, there he is. I didn't see him.
Thanks.
Vipindas is the CEO of MayaMD. So everything Dr. Raju knows, he knows from Vipindas. So without further ado, I'm going to shut my mouth and turn over this to Gary.
Yeah, great. Derek, how long is the panel? How long do we have?
About 30 minutes.
Okay, super. Everybody, it's great to be here. My name is Gary Fowler. And as Derek said, I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. Love artificial intelligence, quantum computing, cybersecurity, and especially in health tech, because each and every one of us want to live longer and we want to live a better quality of life. So I'm honored to be part of this panel today, honored to be moderating it. And I'd like to dive right in and start out with Aparna. So the question is, we talk about aging in place. We talking about this aging population, at least in most of the Western world. What kind of trends do we see happening to be able to help us really live a better quality of life and to be able to live longer in place and happy?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that I would say about aging in place is just the general population's need or desire to opt into aging in place. So traditionally, Zemplee is operating in a $250 billion market. Aging care, elderly care is a serious issue in United States, and the COVID-19 actually exposed the kinks in the system and how much of a big challenge it was for people who are actually addressing this population, which was at the epicenter of COVID-19. So I see that a lot of tectonic shifts are happening as a result of that. In general, in the healthcare space, AI is getting a lot of attention just because of all the points that Dr. Raju was explaining, but predominantly more concentrated for us. How it has helped is, we throw the spotlight on the most vulnerable and needy population. And my background actually is I'm not a medical doctor. I come from the tech industry, and I was previously, working on a lot of AI technology that was predominantly focused on changing behavior. And as we all know, right, as you get older, it's very hard to change a person's behavior. They have preconceived lifestyle patterns that are set in. And what we want to do is to use that as a tool to help people take more interest in their own healthcare, which then actually helps the whole ecosystem in a very positive way. So Zemplee's primary focus is actually on, getting people to take more interest in their own health. And we do work with a lot of ecosystem partners who are actually also desiring the same outcomes. The more we take charge of our own health, the better it is for everyone. And our entire technology that we've built, it's patented, and we are very positive and bullish on what we can do to the whole healthcare space, but predominantly to the aging population.
That's great. Thanks, Aparna. And you're right. I mean, as the population ages, it's about how can we build that quality of life and how we can make people happy and keep them healthier longer. So it's fantastic. Dhruv, I got a question for you. So two-part question. So one is you're democratizing the quality of healthcare in small to medium-sized hospitals. But then at the same time, there's the second part of the question is there's security issues, right? For each one of us here, right? The challenges with going remote is how do we keep it secure, especially things like HIPAA requirements in the US and government privacy acts throughout the world. So two-part question. Tell us a little bit about how are you actually democratizing the quality of healthcare to small, medium-sized hospitals? And then secondly, what about cybersecurity?
Sure. We are at Cloudphysician, and the problem we are facing in India is that there's a massive shortage of ICU expertise. There's a shortage of medical expertise in general, and COVID exposed a little bit of that. But it's even more acute when it comes to ICUs. The doctor that takes care of ICU patients is called an intensivist. And in a country of more than 1 billion people, there are only like 5,000 or so intensivists, which is a massive gap. I don't want to do the math, but per doctor, the number of patients, it's a large amount. And keep in mind, a lot of people end up in the ICU at some point in their life. For most people in old age, for unlucky people, even younger ages. So what we do is, we have some intensivists in our organization. We set up a command center in Bangalore, and we tie up with all these hospitals throughout India in different places, geographically distant places. We will, install some hardware in these hospitals. We live stream everything that's happening in the ICU into our command center where medical experts sit. We have 24/7 video conferencing going on with these remote hospitals who do not have the expertise, and we'll guide them about what should be done, depending on the patient situation. We have a platform where the patient data comes in, whether it's entered manually or whether it's read from devices. We sort of have a 360 degree view of our critical patients all the time. And we help these hospitals take care of patients. So, an intensivist at Cloudphysician, if he or she were working in a hospital, they would be restricted to, 20 patients or however many ICU beds that hospital has. And sometimes, they might not even be occupied. Secondly, intensivist.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big challenge, right? Because if you look at it, what's happened in a hospital, I know recently I was at Stanford, at the hospital at Stanford. Now, here's one of the premier hospitals in the world. Man, there are just not enough doctors. If there's only 5,000 for one, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out, do you, Dr. Raju? I mean, if there aren't enough doctors to be able to service the people, we got a problem. So it's about the data coming in. And think about this. I mean, Dhruv, you said it, you have a great point. There's a massive amount of data that these doctors have to analyze, and they can't remember every patient. It's hard as hell, right? So having that kind of Cloudphysician technology to be able to do that, really a smart ICU solution helps. So I got that. But then let's talk about the next part. You're a CISO too, correct? You're the security guy. Okay, now what happens to people cracking into the system? I mean, there's the danger. On one side, we didn't have that before. What are we doing? How do we protect the healthcare system with technology? How do you defend against it?
Right, that's a good question. HIPAA has these guidelines around keeping patient data encrypted at rest and transit, who should have access. There's break the glass in these, EMR systems to access patients. All of that is there. What we do is we make sure that, so the hospital is in a remote place. They get connected to us through a secure tunneled network, which is, firewalled from the rest of the internet. So we have our own, like a WAN, wide area network, where it's us as the hub, and we have these remote clients connected through secure tunnels. We have access controls. We hire hackers firms to break into our systems. If they find vulnerabilities, they'll report them to us. So we go out of our way to make sure the data is secure. Regarding the amount of data in ICU, it's a bigger problem because there's so much data coming in compared to outpatient. They're streaming data from all these devices coming in. A patient is not on one or two meds. They might be on many meds, many lines, tubes, airways going in. So yeah, there is a lot of data, and we take security very seriously.
Well, I mean, and as we talk about the planet Earth, right? As I've said many times, there's 49 zettabytes of data on the planet. If we took CDs or DVDs and stacked them one on top of another, we'll go 35 times between the Earth and the moon. We're in a state of infobesity, and in health tech, we're in infobesity too. But guess what? It's a matter of life or death, isn't it, Dhruv? We either figure it out or die. So now the other thing is the insurance companies that are out there. The insurance companies are, I'm sure, concerned if we only have 5,000 people that are in intensive care, doctors, how do we address these issues? So great point. Ravi, you're next. Listen, so you're doing MedPay and you build a lot of healthcare startups. What's the state of the healthcare startups today? And what are some of the trends and directions? Of course, we have artificial intelligence, robotics, but what do you see?
Sure. Thanks, Gary. See, the way I look at healthcare evolving in India today is a lot of healthcare startups are coming in terms of addressing the challenges for healthcare providers as well as healthcare patients, right? So one of the important piece that is missing out, where still a lot of innovations needs to be done, is payers, right? So because of which today, when you look at India as a country, the payers penetration is still a single digit number, right? So although there is a CAGR of 20% year on year, so there is still a lot of scope to innovate in the space of health insurance, right? So that's one. So that's exactly what we are trying to solve with MedPay, right? So we are trying to address the challenges of insurers to access and cover primary healthcare, right, which amounts to almost 70% of the total healthcare delivery in the country.
Got it. So I got to ask you all a question. How do we incorporate blockchain technologies, in areas like data analytics and security and research with AI to be able to use these on a global scale? So who'd like to tackle that question? Dr. Raju, Aparna?
Yeah, I can go first. Sorry, Dr. Raju. So, the origins of Zemplee actually started with a blockchain ideology initially. We were actually looking at ways to compensate people for taking interest in their own health. So Zemplee still continues to have that at the back of its, on a back burner, because as we went into the market, we saw that, we first had to solve some of the primary first world problems for healthcare. And, blockchain, I think, has a lot of promise to what healthcare can benefit from. And, our own understanding was, we went into the space, we figured out, gosh, we got to first solve the initial problems and then bring the blockchain technology on it. Obviously, data is a big part of, where blockchain can help: security, data, patient records. etc. And one of the big, as someone who is not from the medical field and looking at it from an outside-in view, I see, interoperability between the system as the biggest challenge. It creates a lot of roadblocks for people who want to innovate and bring the right solutions to the market. But I know Dhruv was telling me, like, the glass walls, they continue to grow taller and taller, despite the fact that there's technology trying to break these barriers. And privacy is a big concern in the United States, definitely all around the world. But and I feel like blockchain can help solve some of those entry barriers for many people who are trying to get into the space.
Got it. Vipindas, there you are. So tell us a little bit about it. So MayaMD, I mean, you're doing this AI-powered clinical intelligence system. How far out does that reach? And tell us a little bit about some of the success stories and what you're being able to do and what's the future look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And before taking that question, I just want to add what we do with blockchain too. We use a DPG encryption system that allows the patients to fully own their data. It's in Cosmos. And coming back to your question, Maya.
And that's wait a second, Vipindas, and that's a big concern, right? Because if we look at things like HIPAA, it's about the security of the data. So if we don't have security, we can't really do this through the pipe.
That is correct. Yes. So with regards to our research and development, we have been in research and development for the last 8 years, working with some of the top universities in the US. As Dr. Raju has mentioned, Yale School of Medicine, we've been working with them for the last 3 years and building a clinical reasoning system for medical students. And we have worked with the University of Utah and Stanford, Johns Hopkins in various projects. Recently, we have done a study that compared human clinicians and then their triage accuracy against Maya. So we did the study with faculty from UCLA, University of Michigan, and University of Utah, and Maya had shown a better accuracy than individual physicians, and that's published. So that's one. And based on these results, we have deployed in the US, we have deployed an insurance company and the largest privately owned healthcare system in the US, that is Steward Health and Motive Health. So in that installation, Maya engages the patients and avoids unnecessary emergency room visits, help them with chronic disease management. And if they need to go to a facility, Maya sends them into in-network providers. So that's something that we do today. And with a couple of large nephrology practices, in the US, I don't know if you're familiar with the CKCC model, where the clinics and doctors are now forced to take on risk. It's a risk-based service. So they will be paid like $50,000 to $80,000 a year per patient. If the patient end up going to emergency room, frequently they lose money. So we are empowering both patients and providers in order to reduce the cost of care. So these are some of the things that we have been doing here in the US.
So wait a second. So it's reducing the cost, but what about the outcome from the patient, right? So if you don't send them to the emergency room and they pass away, I mean, how does that work? How do you like, what's the balance between, because I know when my father was in the hospital, they didn't want to jumpstart his kidneys. And I talked to one of my friends at Stanford who said that they could do that. They could do like shock dialysis. And actually he lived another 2 years. So how do we justify that? Because sometimes in the hospital, I've heard this a number of times, I'm sure you guys have experienced it, but they look at the cost and the age of the patient and say, well, listen, they're over X age, we're not going to do that. How do we do that? I mean, it's kind of an interesting dilemma, isn't it? Because costs are in there and at the same time, a life is really important.
Absolutely. The life is the most important. At the same time, we want to make sure that patients are getting the optimal care. I'll give you an example. Let's say, I'm having a heart attack and I'm in the emergency room. Let's say I'm 10th in the line and 9 of the patients in front of me are having conditions that can be treated as outpatient, right? That is not optimal use of resources. I need emergency care. Just because everybody is, ending up in the emergency room, I'm not getting a timely care. So that's where Maya comes into play. Maya does this, predictive care coordination and understands patients who might be at risk, who might need an MRI scan, who might need a cardiology consults early on. And if the patient doesn't need an inpatient visit, but need a telemedicine visit, it can actually send the patient to our telemedicine waiting room.
Got it. So that's a good point. So let me just, Dr. Raju, got a question for you. Where are we gone with AI and telemedicine now? Like, so for instance, the Internet of Things, you can have devices, especially now with COVID, that can be hooked up, at your house, and you can do a lot of tests. In fact, I'm seeing that even the new Charge 5 has the electrocardiogram capabilities. How do you think it's going to work over the next 5 years? I mean, is it going to be to a point where the doctor's just going to tap into your Fitbit and say, oh, I think we got a problem, Houston? How's it going to work?
Yeah, that's such an exciting question. So what I'm looking at it is, for example, we are seeing a lot of IoT-based devices which will come to the market. We have also started incorporating remote patient monitoring solutions using our AI. So what is going to happen is, with a lot of connected devices coming into place, even with an Apple Watch, you can actually detect atrial fibrillation, changes in your rhythm of your heart. So a small watch, which is not a medical device, can be used to diagnose these conditions. But moving ahead, we are also seeing that there are connected glucometers, connected BP apparatus. So any small change in these parameters can be intelligently tracked. At the same time, device can also send appropriate information to hospitals or your doctor. Now your doctor is completely connected, and he can also get inputs saying that, okay, this patient is going through a low sugar levels currently. So he can immediately pass on this information to his near ones. So for example, Apple Watch also has a fall detection parameter. And if someone falls, especially Zemplee would be a good solution. But if someone falls at a very old age, there's a high chance of them breaking the bones. So what I'm seeing it's going to be really massive, the data getting generated, and with all these algorithms coming into play, it can help us to democratize healthcare, even in developing countries. So since I work mostly in India and the developing markets, we are also able to implement this in rural areas. For example, in a rural area in India, we're seeing a lot of quacks working because the nearest doctor may be hundreds of kilometers away. And now with the system we have implemented in rural Odisha, wherein this center is at least 150 kilometers from a qualified doctor. And we have employed actually a paramedical staff who have a center, and they put in the symptom, because in India, patient may not be that much capable of putting those symptoms into our system. So the paramedical staff can put in the symptoms, 2 minutes to get to a triage. And as Vipin mentioned, we can actually categorize patients who require immediate hospitalization. So those patients can be taken to a center. Otherwise, they can do a telemedicine. So that way, this is going to get democratized in a big
Now,
manner.
how is it going to be? So
Gary, just to add to that, right? So this is Zemplee's sweet spot. I was just recently reading a report from Optum, which is a division of United Healthcare, and their results are showing that about 47% of all AI innovations are happening in the IoT space, and that is the sweet spot for Zemplee. We see that happening already, and especially for us, I think what Zemplee can do is enable what we're calling as a hospital inside a home, or nursing home without walls, which actually enables people to continue to stay in their own home and get care delivered at their doorstep. And our technology, therefore, is collecting all these devices, whether it's a wearable or sensors. Zemplee is mostly IoT, non-wearable, because we work with a very vulnerable and frail population who will not adopt a wearable in their lives. So our technology, therefore, differentiates in such a way that even for that population, we can drive the same level of health outcomes or benefits as may come from a younger population, which is pretty open to adopting, wearable technologies, etc. So again, the point is there is technology available. It's the adoption and the rate at which the industry is adopting that is going to make a huge difference, regardless of where you are on the age spectrum. The reality of the matter is people are living longer. People are living longer with multiple conditions. So as they grow older and older, and aging is a moving target, right? No one knows who is old today. Now, in our population, we have people 100 plus who are on our system today, and they're still active and doing really well. And they want to continue to be independent and live in their own homes. So what we are very happy about is the fact that, we're giving them that one last wish that almost about 99.95% of the population, given a choice, will want to age in place and preferably die in their own homes. So to Dr. Raju's point, huge potential in what IoT can deliver to the healthcare system.
That's
Just
great.
to add a point,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ravi.
Just to add a point to Dr. Raju and Aparna, so insurers in India have actually started covering home care as well as online consultations. Right, that's a great move to the insurers in India. Right, so that's only because of the technology adoption, and even payers have started accepting these technology solutions.
Yeah, I think, we look at it, we really talk about the democratization. I mean, do we see a world? Well, I mean, you've got phenomenal doctors in India. They're phenomenal doctors all over the world. So if you wanted to get the best cardiologist or the best doctor dealing with renal failure from some country, we'll be to a point where you can be sitting in Mumbai and to be able to access that doctor from any place in the world, and they'll actually be able to help treat you, right? Or at least guide it as an advocate. Is that what the next evolution is? And is the AI going to become an intelligent health tech assistant to help guide that doctor? Or is the AI going to assume those responsibilities? What do you think? Go ahead, Vipindas.
Yeah, if I might take, the patient population might be different. The complications in certain populations can be very different. Infectious disease can be very different. So even if, let's say, an expert in cardiovascular disease or valve replacement, whatever, might not necessarily be able to appropriately manage everybody remotely, right? We need doctors who can understand the local pathology, right, and the complication rates of the local population. However, if there are certain very specific questions or specific concerns, and experts want to sort of try to solve that issue together, that is easily feasible. So I don't think that doctors from everywhere can manage patients from everywhere just like that, because the prevalence of conditions are very different in different areas.
Got it. So here's another part. Do we think
There's, can I add something quickly? It is also
Sure.
that, medicine is a regulated industry. So it's not possible for an Indian doctor to prescribe things to an American patient unless the doctor is also certified to practice in the US. And there are some of these regulation related barriers as well. It is solvable, but right now these situations also exist.
So what do you think? So let's talk about exactly, where we are today. And I mean, what are the financial implications for patients, using doctors who visit doctors using artificial intelligence in terms of consultation? Because from my perspective, it's going to be a lot more efficient and effective. I mean, I was reading recently about radiologists, a study that was done at Stanford with computer vision that said that the AI was better able to detect, if you took the combined capability of 23 top radiologists, that the AI was better at predicting melanoma than those 23 doctors. So that's door number one. And I'm trying to figure out how this is going to really affect low-income populations. Are we truly talking about democratizing opportunity? So 2 parts. Who wants to jump on that? Dr. Raju?
Yeah. So I think the way healthcare is being done in different parts of the world is very different, right? So you have Western countries wherein we have insurance taking care of a lot of these problems. At the same time, when we look at countries like India, where still you have a health system in place, but mostly people want to go to a private health system. Definitely government health system is there, but again, the way a lot of people are coming and accessing the health system. So having said that, what we believe is AI will have a huge impact even in developing countries, because you can reduce the queuing of patients in a public hospital. In fact, we have tied up with one of the government health system in the northeastern part of India. We're working directly with the government health system, and this is a very hilly terrain. So what is going to happen is patients find it difficult to reach the nearest primary health center or a secondary health center. And there are a lot of schemes which government wants to take to the patients. In fact, they are also giving supplements to mothers and children, etc. Now, how you access healthcare is also a huge problem. When we have technology like telemedicine, wherein patient can't go to hospital, it can also help in getting the right decision making. Also, patient will have a lot of questions. For example, a new mother may have too many questions about the child, right? You know, if the child is crying, mother doesn't know what needs to be done. If you don't have a doctor nearby, she may find it difficult. So with a small pediatrician call, it gets sorted out. And having said that, India is, as Ravi was saying, just slowly getting more into health insurance. We may have 10% coverage. And with coverage also increasing with companies, including MedPay, we see that democratization can happen. It becomes more decentralized. Even someone saying in rural India and maybe in Mumbai may have access to quality healthcare.
I think, Gary, because I think people think that, you know, from now on or in the future, it'll be a machine or a robot. It'll replace completely a human physician. That's not the future that we think will happen. Because, you know, as a physician, right, even by looking at a patient, there are a lot of information the doctor can capture, the way they walk or the way they look, right? It is impossible to replace that sort of cognitive capability that a human clinician have. In the beginning, what we are trying to do is intelligent data gathering and triage, and the diagnosis and other things will be, the decisions are made by the doctor. Okay, we are only helping the doctor to see more patients in less time. So completely replacing a doctor with AI is not something that we think will happen, but we can empower doctors to see or take care of more patients, you know, with less number of, resources or time.
No, I
Gary,
hear you.
Gary, something that I would like to add, and a valid point, everyone. I think the financial issue about healthcare is a very, very complex problem. You know where we stand, I think largely the rest of the group is on the delivery side of healthcare, but a large part of the cost for the healthcare is also the cost of drugs, and the total cost is a combination of these two. And I feel like on whatever are done on the delivery side can definitely help, but they don't move the needle for the overall cost of the healthcare, just because the cost of drug discovery, drugs, etc., is so skewed. And so it's hard to kind of put a number around how that can actually help. Obviously, AI coming into anything related to drug, whether it's drug discovery, molecule discovery, etc., will help. But honestly, I mean, I think all of you can jump into this. I feel like that in itself is the single most factor which will help skew the cost of healthcare more towards something that makes it affordable, available for the larger population. In the United States, it skews. We have a declining population. So the way our system works is, younger population has to pay for the care of elderly population. And if our population demographics are skewing, which is, we have a lower number of younger people compared to the older people, we're already in a deficit. It's a big macroeconomic problem, but the challenges in the United States are very different as against India, where there's a lot of younger population which actually can be tapped into managing the care for the elderly. Of course, India doesn't have privatized insurance. I get that, but as India is continuing to look at these models and evolving in that direction, it's something that has to be factored in. Best practices from some of the other health systems in other countries, regulatory practices, etc.
No, I agree with you. And, I want to close this out, but I want to give you a simple thought. Think about this. Got a lot of smart people, Stanford MBAs, medical doctors here today, masters from IIT. I mean, just an incredible amount of knowledge. But think about this. How many times in the last 2 weeks have each one of you said to yourself, somebody's called you and said, did you get the email? Did you get the message I sent? And the first thing you say is, where did you send it? I sent it to your Gmail account or Yahoo account. Then what's the next thing you say? You said, when did you send it? I sent it a week and a half ago. Okay, can you send it again? Each one of us here on the phone, think about, or on the Zoom, think about this. You have about 300,000 items in your personal cloud. That number is doubling every year. The entire web in 1996 was only 257,000 websites. So you, Raju, Vipindas, Ravi, Aparna, Dhruv, have more than the entire web, and it's doubling every year. In 5 years, it'll be 10 million items. The reason I'm saying that, I just had a call with one of my doctors, and he had said the same thing to me. Did you send me an email? We are in a state of infobesity. Artificial intelligence, unsupervised AI that can help us to live longer empathetically, to help us to understand what kind of technologies we need to be able to cure us, because each one of us, as similar as we are different, and we each have challenges. So this is like the beginning of the 20th century. AI is the new electricity. Look what happened in 30 years after that century started. Agriculture, from agriculture to manufacturing, it trained our life. We are now in the industrial revolution, HealthTech 4.0. You know, I congratulate each and every one of you for making a dent in the universe. For all the people listening, I'm seeing we've got people from Abbott, people from Massachusetts that are at Brown University. Each one of you, it's your duty to be able to help humanity to be able to live longer and better quality lives. We're all in this together. Let's use that technology to make a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs said. Let's go out and get them. And most importantly, as we end this, let's get shit done, because when it's all said and done, it's about execution. So I'd like to thank everybody for being here today and to joining us. Derek, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, there's a lot of things that this technology is going to have to catch up with: regulations, bandwidth, et cetera. But I think it takes a village. There's not a silver bullet, but I think humans have accomplished much greater challenges, and we're off to the right track because of companies like these and many others. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We'll send out a video and some contact information, and we hope you have a wonderful, safe day. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.